Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. I'm Jack Lohr, Vice President for this year. For a century and a quarter, USR has been a beacon of progressive faith in Ridgewood. Our reputation as activists for peace and justice in human relationships is widely known and one of our greatest assets. Unitarian Universalists are united around 7 principal values rather than dogma or creed. Our congregational statements of conscience call us to work for racial justice, environmental justice, and LGBTQ justice. We do this work with joy. If you are new to USR and want to know more about who we are and what we do, please talk with us. Do remain for the coffee hour breakout rooms so you can chat with folks. And also please fill out the online form so that you can get on our email lists and we can get to know you. It is so good to be with you this morning. Welcome.
A solid reminder of our strength and our values in moments of injustice and uncertainty. If you have a chalice at home, we invite you to light yours as we light ours. Please join in the words that will be on your screen. We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action as we gather together in the circle of community. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
For our centering focus this morning, I invite you to settle in and listen to the great bell chant of Thich Nhat Hanh with video by Alina Bachman.
May the sound of this bell penetrate deep into the cosmos. Even in the darkest spots, living beings are able to hear it clearly, so that all suffering in them cease. Understanding comes to their heart, and they transcend the path of sorrow and death. The universal Dharma door is already open. The sound of the rising tide is heard clearly. The miracle happens. A beautiful child appears in the heart of a lotus flower. One single drop of this compassionate water is enough to bring back the refreshing spring to our mountains and rivers. Listening to the bell, I feel the afflictions in me begin to dissolve. My mind calm. My body relax. A smile is born on my lips. Following the sound of the bell, my breath brings me back to the safe island of mindfulness. In the garden of my heart, the flowers of peace bloom beautifully.
I was delighted this week to discover the new website of the Ramapo-Munsee Lenape Nation, our neighbors to the north in the Ramapo Pass of the Lenape-Hawking. From their acknowledgement of the land, I want to share these words as we begin today. We acknowledge the unceded territories known today as New Jersey and New York City originate from the indigenous populations that once inhabited and cultivated the area, as far as Mannahatta and its collective 5 boroughs. Inasmuch as the Ramapo-Munsee inhabited the region encompassing northern New Jersey, we are indebted to their courage and sacrifice. We give full recognition to their contributions and offer words of honor to their memory. Our pledge in this moment is to shift from unconscious bias to conscious reverence and goodwill. Subsequently, in uniting and extending homage to the tribal peoples who have stayed on this Lenape-Hawking land and endured a quiet genocide, we are witness to the emergence of a renaissance of the Lenape people who have remained steadfast in this new light. So USR, I ask you, why would we include such an acknowledgement in our service? It's because we agree and affirm it, but unless we go beyond words, it becomes only meaningless virtue signaling. By visiting their website and getting to know these neighbors and their history better, we are acting upon our intention to honor the first 2 principles of Unitarian Universalism, to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and to affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. This morning's service is all about declaring intention, because I believe it all starts with words. If we don't tell ourselves and others what we intend to do, we are not likely to achieve much of anything. We need to call it. 8-ball in the side pocket. Then we can support each other in the effort. Together, we achieve what we intend. Now, many of us, most perhaps, have ceased to believe in a God who would interfere to change the laws of nature. And still, some of us practice something that looks a lot like prayer. We believe the universe to be connected by gossamer threads of energy, perhaps on the analogy of the mycelium network that enables trees to communicate. In our version of prayer or meditation, we focus on the joys and sorrows that have touched our hearts. We send the energy of our intention to share the gratitude and grief of others, and dedicate the merit of our practice to the well-being of people, animals, plants, and minerals. And so, week after week, we invite you to name your joys and sorrows and allow us to share with you in solidarity and in grief. We ask you, if you have something on your heart this morning, to type it into the chat, and I will read what you've shared. This is an opportunity now to share our joys and concerns. And I would begin by acknowledging the passing of my spiritual teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, and the celebration of his life that goes on through his community of practice. We'll wait for a few minutes and see if anyone has something to share. There we are, Libby Ortiz. We rejoice in the recovery of a dear young man, Nathaniel, who has practiced Buddhism for many years. Thank you for sharing that. Peggy Taylor honors 2 brave policemen whose lives were brutally cut short in the tragedy in Harlem. We share that grief. Kristen shares with us, acknowledging our sorrow over the death of Thich Nhat Hanh. She's also glad that she made a tough but good parenting decision this week. Ed Wardell shares in the duality of grief and celebration of Thai's life. Thai is the title we give to our teacher. We thank you for sharing and know that we are a community that holds everything together in our hearts. You may know that the last sentence of USR's vision statement expresses an intention to, quote, foster a sense of belonging and fellowship among ourselves through opportunities for celebration and dedication to supporting one another through respect and compassion. we hold all of our shared celebrations and concerns with deep compassion. So may it be. Today is Fred Korematsu Day, the first day in US history named after an Asian American. Korematsu challenged the legality of the US internment of US citizens of Japanese descent during World War II. Although the Supreme Court of the United States upheld his internment in Korematsu versus United States, 1944, he remained in the US concentration camps for the duration of the war. Fred's conviction for evading internment was overturned 4 decades later in US District Court after the disclosure of new evidence challenging the necessity of the internment, which had been withheld from the courts by the US government during the war. This video from the Korematsu Institute is intended for educators to help ask the question, what would you do?
What would you do?
If your constitutional rights were taken away.
If you were imprisoned without a trial.
If you were forced to leave your home, your job, everything.
And live for years behind a barbed wire fence.
This is what happened during World War II.
When the United States incarcerated 120,000 Americans of Japanese descent.
What would you do
if it happened to you?
The internment of US citizens during World War II is history.
But it could happen again.
If we don't fight to protect our civil liberties.
Fred Korematsu did that.
In 1942, he resisted the forced incarceration of Japanese Americans.
And took his case all the way to the Supreme Court.
Korematsu showed us how any ordinary citizen can stand up for what's right.
No matter what the odds are against you.
Today is important that we remember Fred Korematsu's story and learn about this injustice.
So that our future is different.
So that we stop repeating history.
So that no one will take our rights away again.
Every January 30th,
a growing number of states commemorate Fred Korematsu Day.
Of civil liberties and the Constitution.
Shouldn't every state do this?
What can you do?
What can you do? One man made a difference, and so can you. Visit korematsuinstitute.org to obtain more information for your school. You'll receive a free curriculum toolkit created specifically for teachers that tells about the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II. Help others learn why this history is still important today.
Good morning. I'm Dawn Walter, President of the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. Happy Fred Korematsu Day. I have a few announcements this morning. February is a Reeb Porch donation month. So thank you to the Second Wednesday Covenant Group. We are collecting for the Center for Food Action in Mahwah. You can drop off food or other items in the bin on the Reeb Porch, which is the yellow house next door to our main building at 113 Cottage Place. Please do not drop off perishable items, just new, sealed, and unopened items. And if you're raiding your own pantry, please check that things are not past their expiration date. You can also donate cash. You can contact B. Cronin with any questions, and I know there's information about this on Realm. As Omicron wanes, RE is planning an in-person family service next Sunday, February 6th at 4:30 in Anderson for the RE families. Also, in-person classes will resume Sunday, February 13th. Dialogue circles on race begin March 6th. There's a sign up online, and I believe the person to talk to about this is Sally Lewis, if you have any questions. Congratulations to Ron Levy and Palisades Virtuosi. It's a word you don't say out loud very often. Finalists in chamber music for the American Prize National Nonprofit Competitions in the Performing Arts. Are you interested in joining the Sunday Services team? Do you want to know what the Sunday Services team even is? You should speak to Reverend Sarah. She'll be happy to explain it to you. One of the promises we make to each other, sorry, I lost my screen. One of the promises we make to each other in our shared covenant at USR is to support this congregation with our presence, gifts, and service, and to care for each other and the long-term well-being of our community. This is the time in our service when we put that promise into action by reminding each other that we share a vision of justice and freedom for this world, and that it will take all of our different talents, gifts, and support to make that vision a reality. We also uphold our covenant by our annual and weekly giving. Your money makes a difference. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Good morning. The Reverend Terry Ellen was our minister here at USR from 1987 to 2000. This era included our 100-year centennial in 1996. Some of you may recall that due to the crowd size, the former celebration was actually held at Central Unitarian Church in Paramus, but those are stories for another time. I'm happy to share these words of his with you, but regret that I cannot even come close to his eloquence. Reverend Terry was impressed by the work of the volunteers at USR, commenting on the myriad aspects, fine touches, and unseen efforts to respond to needs. He reminded us that the Latin root of the word volunteer means will and wish. He said, what impressed me most is that we together freely willed this whole venture into being. Out of our hearts and minds came a yearning and thus an intention. In a world where coercive power loves to strut its bloodied, egoed stuff, the freedom, the beauty, and the simple wishing into being reminds me why I love being here. So while I celebrate what you remarkable volunteers have put together and accomplished, I even more deeply honor that wish in each of you that brought you to this place and helped to shape it. The origins of that wishing, that yearning in each of us is so important for me as to merit the adjective sacred.
Thich Nhat Hanh says, 4 foods are required to nourish love. They are edible food, what we put in our mouths to nourish our bodies; sensory food, what we smell, hear, taste, feel, and touch; volition, the motivation and intention that fuels us; and consciousness. This includes our individual consciousness, the collective consciousness, and our environment. This reading is from his book, How to Love. It focuses on intention. Goodwill is not enough. Your good intentions are not enough. You have to be artful. We may be filled with goodwill. We may be motivated by the desire to make the other person happy. But out of our clumsiness, we make them unhappy. Walking, eating, breathing, and working are all opportunities to practice creating happiness inside you and around you. Mindful living is an art, and each of us has to train to be an artist. Nourishing your deepest desire. The third nutriment is volition. This is your desire, your hope, your aspiration. It's the energy that keeps you alive. You want to be someone. You want to do something with your life. If you're motivated by compassion and love, your volition will give you the energy and direction to grow and become even more loving and compassionate. However, if your desire is to possess or to win at all costs, this kind of volition is toxic and will not help your love to grow. You can practice developing a strong and positive volition. You can even put your commitment in words, such as, I vow to develop understanding and compassion in me so I can become an instrument of peace and love to help society and the world. This kind of intention is based in our deepest aspiration. On the 10th anniversary of 9/11, a memorial service was led by the Progressive Interfaith Alliance of the Cape Henlopen region, including the Unitarian Church of Southern Delaware. It was raining as the people gathered, but as they began singing the second verse of Unitarian hymn number 318, We Would Be One, a rainbow appeared over the Atlantic Ocean. Photographers and reporters took notice, and within minutes the rain stopped and the sun came out. My optimistic spirit is nourished by such hopeful signs. And I confess that I actually once prayed to change the weather because my son asked me to, and the rain did stop. Not exactly a miracle, but the stuff from which we can make meaning. Perhaps there is some power in that Unitarian hymn, or in the uplifting music of Jean Sibelius. Perhaps it was those aspirational words by Unitarian minister Sam Wright, written for a convention of Unitarian Universalist youth in the early 1950s, as they merged to form liberal religious youth of the US and Canada, leading the way for the U merger in 1961. If a hymn can conjure rainbows, there's no telling what it can do in our hearts and in our lives. On the first Sunday of this new year, Reverend Sarah Lindsay led us through a ritual of setting intentions for 2022. She said these were not resolutions, but intentions for how we will respond to this year, what we will make of it. She asked us to consider the future that we want to build, to listen deeply to our heart, and let ourselves begin to form the centering guidance for the year. Some of us listed our intentions that day. Speak out, balance, awe and promise, navigate toward joy, growth, gratitude, wellness, to write, love, put compassion into action, courage, renewal of spirit and deepening love, respect of self, and adapt. Unlike New Year's resolutions, these sorts of intentions are not things to keep or to break. Intentions are a matter of the heart. Roshi Joan Halifax helps us discover our heart's intention when she says, remember what your life is really about. That is, to act with integrity and respect the integrity of all those whom you encounter. Remember that your intention is to help others and serve others and open your heart to the world. Your motivation keeps you on track, morally grounded, and connected to your highest values. In both Judaism and Islam, a spiritual activity such as prayer requires right intention, lest the spoken words fall to the ground lifeless. Without devotion and understanding, religious practice is like a body without a soul. And still, there are times when specific intentions need to be declared publicly. The first step in taking the Hajj, or the pilgrimage to Mecca, is to declare your intention. Dilshad Ali said of her experience, if you're serious enough about going on a pilgrimage to declare your intention, then you'll find that often enough things will just fall into place. So whether you're undertaking something as potentially life-transforming as a pilgrimage, or for that matter, starting a diet, it can be important to declare your intention out loud and publicly. And to model this today, I want to declare an intention. I've been thinking of a sort of local pilgrimage, and I have decided, and I announce this publicly, to walk from Cape May to High Point, the length of New Jersey, before the end of the summer of 2022. There, I said it. I hope you will help to keep me on track. Ask me about it from time to time. In the Buddhist tradition, one of the 8 practices of the Noble Eightfold Path is called right intention. It's also known as right thought, right resolve, or right aspiration, or the exertion of our own will to change. You see, transformation doesn't just happen. It comes by way of intention. Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us there is a difference between positive intention, toxic intention, and good intentions. Even the best intentions are insufficient. Our intentions must always be followed by skillful action. In my sense of it, there are 2 kinds of intention. One is a vow. An individual can declare personal intention by making a vow or a promise. And the second kind of intention is a covenant. It needs at least 2 parties because it's a shared intention. In the myth of the flood in the Bible, the rainbow is the sign of a vow made by God never again to destroy the earth by water. In the life of USR, the rainbow is a sign of our vow to welcome and celebrate the presence and participation of LGBTQIA+ people. We have unilaterally declared that intention in our welcoming congregation statement. At USR, we also have a covenant declaring our intention for how we will live and grow together. We may not always live up to that intention, but the covenant is a promise to strive together to fulfill it. Now, in a few weeks, you will hear about an invitation to declare your intention in a very specific way. At USR, we call it the Pledge Drive. And our theme this year is Grow Back Stronger. You might hear some political resonances in that theme. Bob Shoemaker, Ira Mendelsberg, and I came up with it, and the board approved it. Nobody else gets to vote. USR has no filibuster. So grow back better is our theme. Not this. It's not make USR great again. We are not looking backward to imagined glory days. We're not wishing that we were 40 years old again. We are not declaring that things used to be so good and they're terrible today. What we are doing is declaring our intention to recover from the constrictions of COVID and to surpass the pandemic in ways that make us stronger than ever. There are many ways to grow back stronger. A churchy way of talking about intentional support of a congregation's mission is time, talent, and treasure. You can declare an intention to be generous and fulfill it by a combination of financial support, delivering meals, volunteering in other ways. People have actually given a car. Used cars are actually very valuable right now. They've donated the use of their vacation home or perhaps an apartment in Manhattan for the service auction. They have signed up to host a Zoom meeting that brings people together. Again, if you will, let me declare a personal intention here. I vow to push and plead until we approach 100% participation in Grow Back Better, Grow Back Stronger. I'm sorry, let me get the phrase right. Grow Back Stronger. I want all of us to give the best answer we can to the call to be part of what I know we all intend for our future. And you will never catch me wearing that red hat, I promise you. Now, although Sam Wright's hymn, We Would Be One, was written for youth, it still inspires a shining hope in a grandpa like me. For one thing, my granddaughters keep talking about coming back to RE when we're reliably back in person. We Would Be One is an aspirational hymn of both love and justice. And we all know you can't have one without the other. I affirm that in every email that I send, with two quotes at the bottom. The first comes from Cornel West in his book, Brother West. He says, justice is what love looks like in public. And the second is from Martin Luther King Jr. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. As I read it, the hymn, We Would Be One, goes beyond the wish for oneness and declares its intentions to build the beloved community, to make tomorrow better than today, to serve love and justice, striving to make all people free. As we sing it now, let's declare our intention to do more than talk about these things. Let us embody them. So may it be.
Please join us in the words for Extinguishing the Chalice. They can be found on your screen. We extinguish the flame, but may the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action burn bright in our hearts until we are together again.
May we be one in sharing our individual intentions and in uniting around our covenanted intentions. At times we may not be like-minded, but we can always be like-hearted. And may we live mindfully in the present moment. Thank you for being here today.